Look at that. We are on time and everything is working great. Because why wouldn't it be? We're professionals.
Yeah. Delay on that. That's normal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not instantaneous. This is going to like a server probably 300 miles away. All right.
I thought you were going to say the other side of the world.
Yeah, don't look at that. Don't try to gauge anything that you're doing by looking at that screen right there.
Just picture that screen and it's
I just have that up.
Gotcha.
I just have it up for the chat right now. That's the only reason I have it up.
Oh, sure.
And don't.
Oh, I was wondering what really was the point of that. That's a good idea. Bravo.
Yes, I'm full of great ideas. Okay, great. I think everything's working. I think everything's running pretty good. Can I pop this out? I can pop that out. That is great. Because, yeah, you can do that on Twitch and Kick, but I never stream very much on YouTube, so I really just don't know how it functions. This is as much a learning process for me as for anybody else. It's pretty cool. Okay.
Waiting for someone in the chat to say, "Boo, you nerds."
Ignore those idiots in the chat. They can talk all the shit they want. Okay. Yeah, looks good. So, once again, my technical expertise pulls us through.
And you're
in a clutch moment.
And your undying patience, yes.
My undying patience and my humility in this whole thing. I mean, you would expect me to get on a live stream like this and just talk about how freaking great I am. Like, just the way that I can just pull all this stuff together and just make it all look really good. And
I want to talk about how great you are in a moment, but should we?
Yeah, sure.
Should we give the audience our brand spanking new theme song?
Okay, sure. All right, let's see if I did this right.
Coming at you from Stevens Point, Wisconsin, it's Mindful 90s.
Is that your intro?
I don't know. It could be. Work in progress. We'll put a pin in that.
I was expecting something bigger. Hold on. I'm going to try one. Welcome to the Mindful 90s podcast, the only podcast that slaps harder than a slap bracelet. Well, that was... There you go.
I almost talked over the booty part. Sorry. That was good. I like that.
After the podcast, anybody who is still with us, we're going to see Andy's mom shake her big booty now. So just prepare yourself for that. That's going to be some good stuff there.
I'll warn you, she doesn't do it like she did in the 90s, but it's still pretty good. It's pretty good.
Well, no, you know what? That's bonus content. Your mom shaking her big booty now, that's bonus content. We'll have to save that for the Patreon. So eventually subscribe to the Patreon and watch Andy's mom. How much do you think your mom, like, what would it really cost to get your mom to, like, shake her booty on YouTube? Like, everybody's got their price. Surely she has her price.
A box of Nutty Bars.
What's your price? What's your price to have to, well, ask your mom and then actually have to bear with it and, like, set it all up? What would the Patreon have to be at for you to consider that?
You can't just put me on the spot like that. I'll get back to you on that. I'm thinking 2 boxes of Nutty Bars, but I'll think it over.
Your mom's going to want at least one of those boxes. That's royalties on her big booty.
Anyways, I wanted to talk about how great you are. How, your character, your magnanimity, and your patience and your humility. Thank you so much for that wonderful Christmas gift you gave me 2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
Yeah, you made a donation in my name to the Human Fund.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I'm
Gave you a
like,
card and everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a live ceremony. Everybody saw it happen.
You seemed really touched. You seemed really touched to have gotten such a great gift.
I felt something. It was appreciation with a little bit of underlying suspicion, and I don't know why. Maybe just because I'm a cynical person or whatever. But yeah, then came the holiday season, and I had a little bit of downtime from all the stuff I've been busy with for the last few weeks. And I'm like, I should finally watch that Seinfeld episode and see what.
The one with Festivus.
Yeah.
Were you surprised to find the Human Fund was also mentioned in that episode?
No, I saw that coming.
Hmm.
And I was watching, and then someone asked George, "What's the Human Fund?" And with a shit-eating grin, he just shrugged real quick and said, "Made it up." And I'm like, "Oh, uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh."
So
I
I didn't make it up. Like it's a real thing.
It's right. It's a real thing. It's as real as Festivus is, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And thank you for everybody who felt the same way about the gift as Corey did. You guys are all awesome. You jerks. Anyways, this is our official first episode. This is not our first episode, or this is not our first episode, but it's our first episode. We did things the way we did them because The Simpsons did it. It was kind of your idea. You're like, why don't Simpsons
Well,
had
no, I wanted to do like a practice episode, and it just happened to fall like right before Christmas.
yeah.
And then The Simpsons was an afterthought.
Okay, yeah. It was the Great Magnet is what it was. The Great Magnet making things happen the way
Yeah,
things
for
did.
sure.
Our first pilot episode was just like the Simpsons Christmas episode. It was not a series on Fox yet when that Christmas episode aired in December of '89. And then in January, season 1, episode 1, it officially became a show. That's us. Simpsons did it.
Did you set any goals for the new year?
Nothing funny. Um, my New Year's resolution is to
No,
balance.
not resolutions.
Oh,
Like a goal, like your goal for the new year. Like what do you like a resolution I feel is just like something people tell themselves to make them feel better. Like I'm going to resolve to get to the gym 5 days a week and then they just never do it.
you're saying I won't be a new me in the new year?
I'm saying like 99.9% of people won't be new thems in the new
We're
year.
talking about me. Will I be?
That's why I'm just asking like what is your goal? Like do you have any goals that you're actually going to set out to accomplish?
Besides 2 chicks at the same time, which is the goal at all times.
Yeah, well, I mean, but see, but it can't be a goal you don't have direct control over either. Like it has to be a goal that you can actually have a direct impact on. So, being with 2 people at the same time, like you don't really have control over that. But what you can do is just, you know, swipe left on Grinder 5 times a night. Just look for the, one of those dudes will definitely match with you, and then you just go on and like find another dude. You know what I mean?
When you said grinder, I didn't catch it right away because I was starting to think about something else. And then when you started talking about dudes, I'm like, oh, he said grinder. I'm gonna have to keep up with you. I'm gonna have to
See
keep my
that
eye on
what
you.
that's a goal. Swipe left on Grinder 10 times a night.
10
Like
times a night.
yeah, like every single night.
No, for real though, my goal is to get on dating sites this year. Now that I'm officially single and ready to mingle, and not try too hard. And I think I'm ready to do that. Maybe that's more of a resolution than a goal. My goal is to, I don't know.
I'm really putting you on the spot.
I'm so big on resolutions that I don't make specific goals. I
That's
figure,
the problem, though. You see what I
maybe
mean?
not. I
You
figure
see what
that
I
if
mean?
my resolutions are good, the goals will make themselves happen.
But it
That's
never happens that way, ever.
all right. Listeners, tell me what my goals should be. Please, in the comments or shoot us a message. And I wanted to mention this at the top of the show. If you have any anecdotes or messages or stories you want to tell, short stories that are related to stuff that we talk about on the show, or you want to leave just any kind of comment as a voice message, hit us up in Messenger. And if you leave it as a voice message, we will listen to it. And if there's time, if we are able to, we'll play it.
Should we? Diley left us a voice message after the last one, and
Number one fan, Diley.
he had a disappointing Christmas to kind of play off of what you were talking about with your wrestling buddy.
When I got Jose Canseco instead of the Ultimate Warrior.
It wasn't even a wrestling buddy. It was like a baseball buddy.
And it turned my universe upside down and changed the path of my life forever. Yeah, Diley had a story that was not the same, but similar enough. And
well, I put it on here.
Okay.
Here, let's listen to it.
All right.
After listening to the podcast, I was reflecting upon if I had any disappointing Christmas thing that would be anywhere near the caliber of the Jose Canseco. And the one time that I can think of that stands out in my mind, since I also have a December birthday as some do, this goes
me too.
to probably October or November.
I can relate.
Going to a store, going down the toy aisle to get some ideas for what I would want on my wish list. And there was this board game that just caught my eye. And all it was this black with these glowing eyes. And I was intrigued by this. It didn't say the name of the game on the box, but this thing was called Atmosphere. I later found that out. So I would tell my mom when she would come to pick me and my brother up, I would like to get this thing. And she would be like, well, maybe you would get that for your birthday or Christmas, so let's just go home. And so this whole time I'm hanging upon
that ambiguous
words.
mom
I might
response.
Get this for my birthday. I might get this for Christmas. Every time we'd go to the store, I'd go back to this thing and look at it and read on what the thing is. And every time it just captivated me.
It will be mine.
I cannot wait to get this in my hands and play this. And hopefully my friends would like this too. My birthday comes and goes. No game, but hey, I'm probably getting it for Christmas, right? Because why would I not? This is on my wish list after all. Why else make a wish list?
Why else?
Christmas comes and goes. Still no game. No big deal. I got my Christmas money. We're gonna go the day after Christmas.
If you want something done, do it yourself.
I'm gonna go and get that game.
He's gonna buy it with his Christmas money.
Make a beeline right to that game
after everybody disappointed him,
and it's not there.
And it's
as if it doesn't exist. For years and years, I never saw this game. It was like my own Mandela effect. I later got to play it because a couple friends of mine happened to have owned a copy of this game. But still, I asked my mom, why couldn't I have gotten something like that this past Christmas? I asked her about that. And she said, it was probably too expensive.
Being poor, man. Being poor as a kid and being in a poor family. I can relate. Know how that is. We still had cool games, though. Do you remember a game called Heroescape?
I don't. No.
It was like a board game, and you had like these little like figurines and stuff that came with it. And there were like warriors and magicians and monsters, and you would go through these mazes, and it was a fun game. But
board game?
Yeah, it was a board game.
Okay.
I mean, video games were taken over by then, but I mean, we were poor and we still managed to get Heroescape. Maybe Atmosphere was just way better.
I read about it a little bit online, and it seems like most people liked it. So,
yeah, I just
obviously why it was, which is obviously why it was sold out.
They just came out with the 30th anniversary edition.
30 years ago. Yeah, the disappointment of he really drove the point home when he's like, what's the point of making a wish list if it doesn't mean anything?
Mm-hmm.
And then I totally relate to if you want something done right, just do it yourself. Like, I'll take this Christmas money that I got, I'll just go buy the dang thing, and then it's not there. It's the equivalent of hitting every red light when you're in a hurry to get somewhere, except multiplied by 100 because it's Christmas. It's a Christmas letdown, and just Yep.
See, and I always just assumed it was a wish list. Just that, a wish list. Well, this is stuff I wish I could get, but I probably won't. I don't think we got a lot of stuff that was on any Christmas list we ever made. And when we were like really young, we'd make out Christmas lists and be like, "Hey, this is what we want. Tell Santa we want this shit." Santa just ain't got no money, man. He doesn't have the money for half that shit.
Do you think kids these days can relate to that kind of crushing disappointment and inability to not be able to get that resource, have the resources to get that thing that they want? You know what I mean? Like,
I have no idea.
I if any super young listeners want to chime in on that, I'd love to know.
I feel like people have a easier time of getting shit now than we did back then, especially when it came to anything media related.
I was gonna say everything is not everything, but most things people want are media related these days, and media is just digital. So if you have the internet and you know half of anything about anything, you'll get it. You'll know how to get it. But anyways,
Well, what were you going to talk about tonight?
who started you started last time with Festivus. Should I start this time?
Yeah, I don't care.
So
Well, you have two topics, right? I brought in two topics.
I do.
Okay.
What do you want me to start with, the positive one or the negative one?
Just start negative. I'm going negative right off the bat and finishing positive. Because that's how my whole new year is going to be. It's all going to be positivity, baby, from here on out. Probably not, but
You I think at least one comedian, if not more than one comedian over time, have included a bit in their routine where they talk about their parents buying them something that they felt was expensive. And then every time they talk about it, they slightly raise the price of how much they paid for that expensive thing for you because they're just trying to.
the parents are raising the price when they're talking about it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yep. Anyways, what I'm talking about is when I was in grade school in the 90s, I lost, I'm going to put in air quotes for now, a lot of my winter weather gear at school. And then my parents got super mad about it and were very rude to me, very mean to me about the fact that this stuff came up lost. And my mom's boyfriend who lived with us, Bob, he really, really loved to tell company when they came over about how Andy lost his $40 boots. I believe
You were the topic of conversation with the company. That's great.
it was just it's something that's always ready in his mind to talk about. So I believe the boots were actually $35. So right off the bat, he rounded it up to 40 because why would he round down to 30 when he can round up to 40? And when I would like leave them somewhere or not remember to properly dry them out after sledding or whatever, it was always yelling at me for not taking better care of my $50 boots. And
because you didn't have them anymore. And he's just like, well, it's too bad your feet are cold because you had those $60 boots that we bought for you and you just treated them like shit.
Basically. So there were times in grade school when it was snowing or there were like 4 feet of snow while I'm waiting for the bus. So I'm supposed to wear my boots to school and bring my shoes with me. Because when you're in school,
you can't wear your boots.
You have to be wearing your shoes.
Yeah, I feel like that's a school problem. School administration, some of that's on their heads.
Absolutely.
Like seriously, who's trusting like retarded 7-year-olds to keep track of all their clothing in school? That's just idiotic. Do any of these people have kids or what?
I've seen people. Yeah. Sometimes
I wouldn't want to do it just because your feet would get way too hot, but
kids aren't the best at paying attention. Kids aren't the best at remembering stuff, especially when. Anyways, we didn't have lockers. We had we had an open rack system outside in the hallway next to our school, next to our classroom door, and everybody just hung up their jacket and put their boots and their hats and their gloves above or below where their jacket hung. And there were times when I guess I was just in a hurry to get on the bus, and I just grabbed my jacket and ran. And then
You were in a hurry to get the hell out of school? That's weird for a kid. Like, I can't imagine why that would happen.
it's almost like I didn't want to be in kid prison any longer than I had to be.
Yeah.
And come home, where's your boots? Sometimes they would notice right away, and sometimes it wouldn't come
Wait,
up.
how many times did this happen?
I was actually thinking about that. I want to say like 3, but it feels like 300, just because they wouldn't shut the hell up about it. So I feel like it happened 300 times.
We're siding with Bob at this point.
It was just like 3.
Like, if that was my kid, after the first time, that's a fuck up. That's just a mistake. That's fine. Second time, you're like, all right, stop being dumb.
I'm not talking to
Third time, I'd be telling all the company. Third time, I would have a big party just to invite people over to talk about you leaving your $100 boots at school.
the airing of the grievances of Andy forgetting his boots.
Mm-hmm. Wait, did Bob pay for these boots, by the way? Or was this your mom?
It was probably my mom, and then Bob took half the credit for it because, of course.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's that kind of guy. Swell fellow. It's not like I forgot them 3 snowy days in a row. I mean, grade school was a long time, man. Grade school was like, I don't know, about 6 or 7 years.
You're saying 3 times over 6 or 7 years? That's not bad.
Right.
Now I'm back on your. Okay, now I'm back on your side. I'm like waffling between you and Bob. I don't know whose side to take here.
Okay. I don't even think I'm talking about in the same winter. I'm just talking about.
Okay, that's not that bad. Even if it was 10 times over the course of 6 years, that wouldn't be that bad. But now, are you pulling a Bob right now? Like, Bob gets higher and higher with the prices, and you're getting lower and lower with the number of times you fucked up and left your boots at school? Like, what's really happening here?
I don't understand the question. Let's just move on. Okay, it might have been 4 times, but even if it was just 5 times, I mean, come on, is 6 times really that many?
No, it's really not.
No, it's not. I mean, I forgot them a few times, and sometimes they would notice when I came home without my boots, or it wouldn't come up again until the next time there was a snowy day and I needed to put them on. And yeah, I guess I was pretty absent-minded if I just didn't even so much as think about my boots again until several days later when I needed them to wait for the bus on a snowy day again. And it'd be like, "Well, where are your boots?" And I'd be like, "I don't know."
That's never a good answer to give to your parents. Like, my parents didn't tolerate that shit. Like, I don't know. That was not an acceptable answer.
They gave me a hard time for that, always saying, they they ripped on me for saying, "I don't know," and because he told me to, for like stupid answers for stupid things that I did. Which fair enough. Fair enough, parents. I mean, hey, some of the stuff they did to give us crap, it toughened us up and it kind of forced us to pay a little more attention to what we're doing.
Not enough, apparently, because you got them again and again. So
no more than 7 times. No more than 7 times. I promise you it was not more than 8 times. And yeah,
I probably forgot shit at school, like clothing and stuff. I don't remember doing anything like that. At least my parents never made a big deal about it. So, I mean, it couldn't have been that bad if I did. But the question is, how are you going to get back at Bob for this? Like, are you going to...
Well, wait, I remembered the one last thing I wanted to say to finish up the story, which was, how did this happen? Because I didn't lose the stuff. I left it at school, but then I left it there for a few days, and then suddenly it wasn't there. But when I would check the lost and found, it wouldn't be there either. Somebody must have stole that stuff.
Yeah, because they were getting shit from their parents too, and they're like, shit, somebody stole my boots. I'm going to take these.
So what Bob should have been saying was not, you lost your $80 boots. He should have been saying, you got to learn the game and you got to learn how to play it better. Next time you're missing your boots, you better either go find them or you better go find somebody else's. But
that would be a good life lesson.
I guess Bob wasn't wise to the streets, and therefore neither was I. I mean, the streets is tough in Amherst, Wisconsin, and
yeah,
they swallowed me up whole. That's really what it's all about.
Like, you got swallowed up in little 400 population Amherst. Man, how are you going to handle prison if you ever end up there? You better pray to God you don't get bunked with Bob because he's going to eat you alive.
This is, you know what? You just made me realize this is why I've played it on the safe side my whole life and been such a good boy and such a virtue seeker, is because I know that I won't survive in prison because I'm not street smart enough to know to steal somebody else's boots when my boots get stolen. That's what this all really boils down to. I should be writing this down because I'm in real time learning life lessons right now.
Well, that's what I'm
It's
here for.
so doesn't matter if they're the right lessons. You will teach me lessons.
The only thing that I would have to say to this is just when Bob dies, you have to like just put some boots at his gravestone or something. Just something like that. Because that will bring the ultimate closure.
Boots full of my poo. I'm not
You don't even
unwilling
have
to
to go
do
there
that.
or go to the funeral. Show up at the funeral with boots and then leave them in the casket or something and then leave without the boots and make sure they're like $100 too.
And there will be poo in them. There has to be. I think that's a given.
Well,
But
if you feel that strongly about it, oh, wow. I was just talking about leaving clothes on somebody's grave.
yeah, but I'm talking about spite.
Yeah, I was talking about spite.
No, I mean like I, hey, I guess I'm trying to make it funny because you know what? You have to look back on this stuff and laugh about it. Now, I mean, after I seethe about it endlessly, I have to remember to laugh about it at least a little bit before I'm done. I wonder where those quick side note, it happened a few times with hats and it happened a few times with gloves as well. But obviously, the thing that sticks out in my mind the most is the $120 boots. So I hope other people think it's as funny as I do every time I say $130 boots.
There's probably a million people out there that can relate to this because their parents are just.
And when
The
Bob
only thing
said
that
it,
makes me mad about the whole thing is just making a big deal in front of everybody about it.
and he was so animated about it. He was so in that zone
Yeah.
of just like
Well, no,
roasting.
if you're going to talk about it in front of people, you are going to be like that's going to be your
Oh,
life for the next half hour.
it's a
Is just that.
performance.
Yeah.
It's a performance, and every time you do it, you have nothing to look forward to until the next time you get to do something like that. Kind of like when you see like a 50-year-old person at a Slipknot concert wearing like fishnet long sleeve shirts and all that stuff. It's like that person hasn't left their house since the last time they went to a Slipknot concert. You know this because
I didn't change either.
so I guess that's it. Um, I hope Bob is watching this. I hope somehow he's watching this. That would be really cool.
That would be great.
My birthday's coming up in less than 2 weeks. I should send him my address so he can send me some $150 boots.
Bob, call in and let us know what you have to think about Andy being a dumbass and like leaving his boots at school and having them stolen of all things. All these boots that you bought that you spent so much money on, and he just doesn't appreciate the work that you do to provide boots for his little feet.
But they loved repeating the phrase the word lose. He lost him. He lost him. What did they think I did? Did they think that at recess I like ran out into the middle of the street in front of the school and just like swung them around by their laces as hard as I could and then just let them go?
No, if you get them stolen, that's still losing something.
Yeah, but that little footnote should be added when they're doing their storytelling and their lecturing.
What, that they were stolen?
That
But then that takes away from you.
If you just say lose and leave it at lose, it just sounds like I misplaced things and don't know how to retrieve them. I didn't misplace it. We all know where I left it. It's the only place you're allowed to leave your
Yeah, but
boots
you
at
said you
school.
lost them a few times, like 10 times before they were finally stolen. They probably just thought, oh, you lost them again, and this time they're not going to be found.
I wonder why they got stolen though. Was it somebody poor who needed them, or was I like a jackass and didn't realize it and somebody just couldn't wait to lift my shit? Like I did. These are the things that I wonder. things that I should have wondered a little bit more back then. Like the second time they ended up missing because they were stolen, I should have been like, I should stop and check myself. Am I pissing somebody off? Like
I had my car stolen twice. So, I mean, getting boots stolen's nothing.
you've had your
Yeah.
I've had my car broken into 2 or 3 times.
No,
Never
I've had stolen. I used to leave it parked in the driveway with the keys in it.
Okay.
So I wouldn't lose the keys,
Mhm.
but somebody ran off with it a couple times. Found it both times. It was fine, but
Now, would you appreciate somebody telling that story and saying Corey lost his car?
yeah, well, I found it. I found it right away, unlike you, your carelessness with your boots. See, I got my car back.
I should have.
I had my car stolen and still managed to find the car. Like that should be something I know. Like that should have ended up in a chop shop in Chicago or something.
And the worst part of all is these days, you could probably find boots exactly like those $160 boots by just going to a thrift store. I feel like at thrift stores these days, stuff like that is more prevalent, more easily accessible. Not back in those days. Or maybe I'm misremembering that. Maybe
I don't think I ever had $80 boots, so I can't really speak on that. I'm sure all mine were hand-me-downs or rummage sale boots or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
by the way, for people who haven't been able to properly see it yet, I am wearing a Ween t-shirt. Very nice.
is this from your collection of t-shirts from the 90s?
This is a shirt that I acquired in the last 5 or 6 years, but it's a reference to their song Pork Roll, Egg and Cheese, which was released in the 90s. And Ween, the majority of their success was also in the 90s. So that's that.
You'll have to talk about them sometime.
Oh, yeah, it's coming.
I was going to talk about, since this is the first episode of the Mindful 90s, I thought it would be fitting to talk about how the 90s just weren't that freaking great. They just weren't anything to be excited about.
You take that back, sir.
There is so much 90s nostalgia on social media that it drives me crazy. Millennials think that like my kid thinks that the 90s were some kind of like golden age of civilization, and it wasn't. There's no way I would trade what we have now today for going back to the 90s and having to do that shit again. And I mean, I made a lot of notes about. So there's some things with the 90s nostalgia that I do appreciate. So YouTube is full of videos that talk about bands from back then or video games or movies, whatever. A lot of that is interesting, informative, historical. That's fine. But like Twitter nostalgia is all this Twitter nostalgia accounts are all like, what is the most memorable movie to you from 1995 or something? It's all just like your opinion. Like it's all just nostalgia engagement farming. That's all it is. And none of it is useful. But I do get a sense from a lot of people that they really look fondly back. And it's not just Gen Xers. Boomers were kind of the same way, maybe not to this degree. Maybe they were to this degree, but we just weren't exposed to it because the boomers aren't the ones on YouTube doing nostalgia content. It's all Gen Xers. And a lot of them just have this view of, oh, times were so wonderful and they were so much simpler than they are now. And the world wasn't so evil and out to get you. And that just drives me crazy because there is nothing that we have today that I would trade for whatever we had in the 90s. Everything is literally better.
Except radio music, but
I'm going to talk about that. Well, let's just start there. Let's start with radio music. In the 90s, there was no other way to consume music than buying cassettes, buying CDs, going to concerts, and listening to the radio. That was it.
MTV.
That's all you had.
MTV.
Kind of.
If you had cable, which.
Yeah. So you never learned about anything new and good back then. You can't just turn on Spotify or YouTube music. And just, I go down a YouTube music rabbit hole probably once a month, where I'll just get something in my suggestions. Hey, maybe you like this. And I'll just click on like some band I've never heard of. I've discovered so much great music in the last 10 years of my life than I did in the first 25 years of my life.
And most of it's from the 90s.
The music from the 90s was not that great. I'm sorry. Compared to all the stuff that we have available now. And look, I was a big, metal fan and like grunge fan and new metal fan even when that first started. But it's so simplistic and boring now. I can't listen to any of it. I listened to that shit when I was a kid. I cannot stomach listening to any of it. I can't listen to fucking Pearl Jam or Nirvana or Alice in Chains. Like, I can't listen to those bands anymore. Are you kidding?
I feel like you're looking at the 90s right now through the opposite of rose-colored glasses. Like at the time,
absolutely. No, I'm looking at it through reality glasses. That's
cynicism glasses. Come on,
this
man.
isn't cynicism. This is straight up boredom,
bro.
I mean, how can you listen to the same? And I never understood that about my parents either. How they could just listen to these radio stations, these classic rock radio stations over and over and over again and not get bored of them. By the time I was 10 years old, I was already bored of radio, Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and AC/DC for sure. My God, they're really bad. But I feel the same way about like 90s grunge music now. There's so much great music that came out in the 90s that I'm not sick of, for sure, but it wasn't the popular stuff. So I still like Opeth. Opeth was more or less a 90s band. I think they started in the 80s, but they got big in the 90s. Porcupine Tree is another one. I think they're a great band. But these aren't radio bands. These aren't MTV bands. So the only way, my point is, to bring it back to the radio part, is you can't consume music on any meaningful level in the 90s. Everything was word of mouth. Shit. Two Live Crew. Remember Two Live Crew?
Of course.
We loved that shit. We had no access to it. We had to like pass around like a tape that had been recorded and then taking a recorded version and recording that. That was how we learned about Two Live Crew.
Somebody had to have a friend with a cool cousin.
Yeah, and if we would have had Spotify or something, we would have all known about Two Live Crew.
A cool cousin. It wouldn't have been like city.
Okay, you can make the argument that, if you had a copy of one of their tapes, then it was kind of like, now you're part of the in-group because it's all like underground and kind of subversive. Yeah. And but that only goes so far. Eventually, everybody knows about it. And I mean, that's just music. All other forms of media are basically the same thing. TV from the 90s fucking blows.
Hold on a second. I gotta say a couple things about the stuff you've been saying about music.
You want to defend the 90s?
Number one, I will give you the point that you made about AC/DC, which made me chuckle.
If we argue long enough, you'll give me all the points.
AC/DC had one song that they did 300 times.
Yeah, right, for sure.
It was a pretty
But that's all grunge was. That's all Nirvana was. Nirvana had 3 chords that they just mixed up into different songs. That's all it was. And I'm saying this as a huge former Nirvana fan.
I think technology has turned you into more of a machine than a human these days.
No, I've been able to expand my human horizons in a way that doesn't keep me tethered to the past.
Except I feel like maybe your emotion. I feel like you might not be in touch with your emotions, Corey. I think maybe you should look.
No, I just find new and better music to get in touch with my emotions with.
The thing that I'm really caught on right now is the idea that right now you could go listen to some Alice in Chains and not feel anything.
Yes, I absolutely am saying that right now, and the same with Nirvana.
Then
same with Pearl Jam. I'm just using those 3 as an example.
Chime in and boo this man, people. Please.
No.
Please.
Just Here's what you do. Leave some good music in the comments that other people, it can be from the 90s. I don't care. Like I said, Opeth and Porcupine Tree are two of my favorite bands. And they were mostly in the 90s. I love those bands. Most of it was dog shit. And it's not that most of it was dog shit. At the time, it was really cool. Look, grunge was very groundbreaking when it first came out. So was nu metal, for that matter. The problem is that is all we had to listen to, because we had no access to anything else beyond this narrow scope of bands and genres. That's the problem. Did you ever have those magazines that had like the metal t-shirts in them where you could like order metal t-shirts?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I used to page through those and see all of these bands that I had never fucking heard of before, and just sat there and been like, I wonder what they sound like. Sure would be pretty cool if I could listen to this band. And
yeah,
I specifically remember an L7 t-shirt. Remember the band L7? There was a band
10 that were dead. Yeah, man.
There was an album that they did called Smell the Magic, and the t-shirt had like a girl's legs spread in front of somebody's face, and they just had their like face down between her legs. L7 Smell the Magic. And I'm like, that's interesting. I wonder what L7 sounds like. Sure would be nice to know. You can do that now. I can jump on YouTube and listen to the whole album. I think I will after this, because I had forgotten about L7 for 20 years until just now. I don't want to. If I get suddenly zapped back to like 1992 from this chair, I'm going to be pissed, because I will have been just on the verge of hearing the L7 song, and now I can't again. And now I'm back to where I can't.
In a moment like this, we have to stop and give some cool points to Mike Judge for bringing us Beavis and Butthead in 1993, which was a show where they would watch music videos of obscure bands.
Yeah, sure.
Helped.
But you still didn't have access to the music, though, is what I'm saying. You can watch these obscure bands, and you can go to the local record store and be like, hey, have you ever heard of this band? And the guy's just going to be like, no, they weren't in the top 40. We only have top 40 stuff here.
That's your main point. And yes, absolutely. It's a good point. We were restricted.
Yeah, we were very restricted. We were restricted to listening to really shitty bands. Like I said, I was a huge fan of, grunge music and nu metal when that came out. By the end of the 90s, I was so sick of all of it, and I haven't looked back. Now, here's the question. Had we had access to more varieties of music like we do today, would our tastes in music be totally different? I think they probably would. I think we had to deal with what we had at the time, and that's what we went with.
Yeah.
And that was just my first reason for why the 90s just weren't that great. The other one was TV. Like I said that briefly. TV sucked. And for all of the same reasons. What was the 90s? What was first of all, it was restrictive, okay? All the same problems that we had with music, it was restrictive. And it was so bad. Like, most of it was so fucking bad. Have you ever gone back as an adult and tried watching shows that you watched as a kid? It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's dated. It's awful. Trying to watch Full House in your 40s doesn't work at all. There were a few good shows that came out in the 90s that Seinfeld obviously was one of them, but I didn't discover Seinfeld until early to mid 2000s. So 2002 to 2005-ish, somewhere in there. That's when I discovered Seinfeld. It wasn't while it was on TV. Friends is so fucking bad. Even back in the 90s when everybody was watching Friends.
Yeah.
The only time I suffered through Friends was when I was at a girlfriend's house and she had to watch Friends. And I would have to sit there and pretend like it was funny, and it wasn't at all.
Well, how do you feel about people who think Seinfeld wasn't funny? There are people who thought Seinfeld was not funny.
There's still a lot of people that think Seinfeld wasn't funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's look, everybody can have their little modes of humor. That's fine. Friends is objectively bad, though. Is it really funny after all of these years? You watched Friends, didn't you? I can
No.
tell by the look on your face.
No, the look on my face is saying, are you saying Seinfeld is objectively not bad? Because you just specified that Friends is objectively bad.
Oh, yeah.
Would you go so far as to say Seinfeld objectively had merit?
Yes. You don't think there's life lessons to learn from Seinfeld?
Well, that's not the same as what I'm saying.
Like the Human Fund? Like that's a life lesson right there. It just just those two things. That was one episode. And look at all the good it did for us. What did Friends ever do? Chandler died. Chandler died in a pool, and the only thing that happened is Twitter roasted him.
Too soon, sir.
They roasted him for weeks after that.
Too soon,
That's
sir.
it. Nobody was coming up and being like, I take that back. Nobody but middle-aged white women were going on Twitter and being like, he was such an inspiration in my life. He made me feel so good and gave me some hope in life. There's people like that that are out there. That's fine. I'm glad they get something from it. I'm saying I don't want to go back to that. I don't want to go back to having to watch that because it's the only thing on TV. Because there's 500 streaming services right now, and there's the Pirate Bay, and there's all these great resources for getting media. I don't have to watch Friends. I don't have to pretend that it's a good show. I can just say, no, I don't. I'll have nothing to do with it.
I don't. Keep going. I've got something I want to say, but I don't want to cut you off.
Is it TV related?
Not enough. Not TV related enough.
Okay. Yeah, so when it comes to media, music, movies, TV, I'll even throw video games in here. There is...
Hey, Corey, are we still live?
Let me check.
There
it is. Now we're live.
I'll ask him what about now.
Okay. There we go. So here's what happened. We just streamed
47 minutes?
Yeah, for 47 minutes. And you know what? When we get done with this, I'm going to download the stream that we just got done doing for I don't even know where the fuck that went, but I'm going to have to download that and then download this one and like re-upload them
Merged.
to YouTube. Yeah.
Merged. That's exactly what I was thinking as you were saying it. Yeah. Okay.
Unbelievable.
Okay. Hello.
You know, and here's the thing. At the beginning of the stream, we were so proud that everything was set up, everything was running.
And it was an illusion.
But that's kind of on me because I should have recognized that the title was wrong before I hit go live.
The devil isn't just on your shirt. The devil's also in the details.
What kind of shit is that YouTube has? They have two different setups for what you can stream from? But that doesn't even make sense. God, this is why I stream on Kick and Twitch.
Yeah.
YouTube is not the place to be doing this. No, it's the place for podcasts, though. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Okay, everybody listening, thanks for being here. So we started on time at 7:00. We kicked right into our first two topics, which were I talked about how much it sucked when I would lose winter weather gear at school, and then my family would make me feel horrible for it. And then Corey started talking about his topic, and his topic was the 90s.
Well, no, I thought you were going to point out that Corey was kind of on my mom's boyfriend's side when he was talking about like losing his shit as a little kid.
You went back and forth, and in the end, I'm still not entirely sure whose side you were on.
I'm not quite sure either. I would need to know.
Well, that's why.
I would need to know more. I'd like to hear more of Bob's side.
And then when Corey was probably about 80%, 90% done with his first topic.
No, like half.
Oh, okay. I get a text message from somebody saying, "What? No podcast?" Thank you, Jeff Rowe, for doing that, because that's when we realized, even though we went live, we did not go live on the scheduled stream that we had set up on YouTube because of a minor oversight. We're still new at this, and we remembered like 100 other things, and we corrected 100 other things from the from the live stream we did 2 weeks ago, but it was that one thing that we didn't quite do right.
Okay, this is live now.
So
I'm
now
looking
here
at it on my phone.
so now here we are, and we are live. So
It
anyways,
completely interrupted my train of thought too.
you were on fire with your whole being a hater ass buster over the 90s type of thing.
The 90s were not that great. And I think I made a great case. I talked about, TV sucking, music sucking.
Access to music mostly, but
Well, the music.
the
too,
music
though.
you had access to sucked.
Yeah.
Really your point.
So yeah, it was a lot of media. Oh, I remember where I was going with that. So video games was another one. Back then, you had consoles. Consoles were a big thing. Prior to that, there was a lot of like Commodore 64 and DOS PC games.
Just to clarify, Corey is pleading a case for why, in general, he thought the 90s weren't that great.
Yeah, my case for the first episode of Mindful 90s, a show about the 90s, is that the 90s just simply weren't that great. They just weren't that great.
Corey sees too many people looking at the 90s through rose-colored glasses, and he's looking through what is basically the opposite of rose-colored glasses.
No, rose-colored glasses for the future. Like,
Or-
the past is... There's nothing there. There's nothing there. Why are people like so into nostalgia? Is it really because the time that they lived in was so good? I feel like if I ask a lot of people, well, was it really that much better than it is today? I think a lot of people are going to say, yeah, it was, and give a whole slew of reasons why it was. But that's not the case. Here's what I think is really going on. I think people look back fondly at a time when they had no responsibilities. They had, they had to go to school. That wasn't even their responsibility. That was their parents' responsibility. They were young, so they could eat whatever they want. They had all the energy in the world. That's what they're looking at. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, the 90s aren't better than the 80s, weren't better than the 70s, weren't better than the 60s, even though all of the nostalgia people will tell you the time I lived in was better. It's not true.
It's all relative.
You were young.
Yeah.
You were young and stupid. You still had this belief that you could, like, the world was this amazing mystery, and you were gonna get out there one day, and you were gonna discover all this stuff, and you were gonna be an astronaut or a police officer, or you weren't working in the dog food factory. You didn't have like 5 unappreciative kids running around all the time that you gotta feed. They're losing fucking $80 boots at school, and you don't have like your wife or your husband like constantly nipping at you for every little thing.
Constantly texting you.
There is no reason why people shouldn't look back on that period of their lives and have some sense of comfort there, right? And that's all nostalgia is. What I'm doing is taking all of that bullshit away. I'm looking forward to the future. I never reached a point in my life where I said, okay, I'm done exploring life. I'm done learning everything. I'm just going to sit my ass in front of a TV and work a shit dead-end job until the day that I die.
Complacency.
I think a lot of people do that, and they get to a point where they
sell out,
where they just wake up one day and they're like, man, this sucks. Things were better a long time ago because I didn't have to worry about this. And so that's why nostalgia content is so big online, on social media, especially on YouTube, especially. That's really what it is. People want to sit down and have somebody reminisce about their favorite game because they can't play video games anymore. That's all it is.
I'll probably be bringing up this fact as a reoccurring thing on this podcast. I think that not only what you just said is true, people are looking back and saying, oh, I wasn't an adult then. I didn't have all these adult stresses and responsibilities. But also, the thing that I think I'm going to be bringing up as a reoccurring theme is the internet. The commonality of internet in the home didn't explode until the very end of the 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we all started to get those crappy first versions of computers with the internet, like an e-machine or whatever back in like 97, 98.
Yeah, but even back then I was just like, wow, this is going to revolutionize everything. I'm so excited for this. And I was so happy about it.
But like, I really kind of consider the turn of the millennium to be like the point where like we became comfortable in front of computers. We were used to it. We talked about what we did online.
Yeah, Gen Xers were the first. We were the first ones that were on the cutting. We built the internet as it is today. I mean, let's be honest. It wasn't the boomers. It wasn't the millennials. Gen Xers basically built what we know as the internet.
So I feel like the end of the 90s was the end of that. And then the beginning of the next decade was when it's like, oh, now that I'm commonly on the internet, able to find what I'm looking for pretty easily, you start to know too much maybe, and you don't even realize it.
As a kid in Amherst, which used to be a pretty vibrant Amish community, did you ever once look at the Amish and think, man, I really want to be Amish? That would be just the most amazing thing in the world. No running water. I could never watch TV again. Wow, that just sounds so awesome. Did you ever think that?
Once or less.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel about the 90s.
Yeah.
The 90s are the Amish people. And I'm looking back on that and I'm like, would I trade internet and podcasting and all of these cool things that I can do to go back there?
I'd like to apologize to all of our Amish viewers if you feel insulted.
No. There is no reason to love the 90s. Sure, people like some of the media that they grew up on. That's just, it's like imprinting. When a baby duck hatches from an egg, it follows the mother because the mother is the first thing that it sees move. And so it thinks, hey, that's the mother. I gotta like follow that around. Humans are the same way. We get imprinted when we're kids on video games and movies. And so a lot of people think, well, that was just the best thing that there was. Now, people will say, well, the movies today, they suck. Like take Star Wars. Star Wars is always getting shit on, like the new Star Wars movies. Oh, it's never as good as the first one.
Feverishly. Yeah.
The truth is they're not. But are they not because they're yeah, okay, they're really not. Maybe that's a bad example. I was going to say, if you saw Star Wars, like if the new Star Wars came out back in the 70s, like just take the newest trilogy, the woke trilogy that everybody fucking hates, and that came out back in the 70s, everybody would have loved it and thought it was the most amazing thing.
Yeah. It's a matter of perspective, which is something I said a little bit ago. And it's all relative. Yeah.
It is a matter of perspective, but I think, you know what? I'm not even going to get into it. Here's some other reasons. I'm just going to rattle these off real quick of why the 90s just weren't that great. In the 90s, porn wasn't free and available anytime that you wanted it.
I'll credit you that.
You had to go to a specific store that didn't exist in a lot of towns, by the way, because people wouldn't let them come in, the porn shops. And you had to pay massive amounts of money for magazines and videos. In the late 90s, I remember going into a porn shop to buy like weed smoking paraphernalia because that was the only place you could get it for whatever reason. Porn videos even back then were like $60 for a fucking VHS tape.
Yeah.
That is insane. The porn industry has completely collapsed. At least the old school porn industry is gone. And good riddance. OnlyFans, where any girl in the world can just decide that she's going to become a star.
Or guy, sir.
Yeah, but they don't ever have the fan base that the ladies have.
The newest episode of South Park touches on that pretty hilariously.
That's job opportunities. That's job opportunities that didn't exist in the 90s.
Yeah.
You didn't have phones. You didn't have constant access to other people at all time, so long as you had your phone on you. Now, people will argue, well, that's a bad thing. I don't think it is. I like the fact that when I'm waiting in a grocery store line between some fucking idiot counting out pennies and using a whole book full of coupons, I know I can do something at least semi-productive while I'm wasting this time. If this is the 90s, I'm just wasting time. And there's no way to get that back.
Real quick, while you're in between thoughts, I like that word that you used, imprint. I've been thinking about that in the back of my head because I think about a lot of stuff in terms of nature versus nurture, and then I start to think about like sometimes there's that thing that happens so early in your life that it's technically not nature because it's not in your genetics, but it happened so early that you really didn't learn anything else in your life before that, so it might as well be nature because it was such an early thing that was nurtured into you. That's an imprint. That's like the first set of imprints is.
And I think
that
that really has more to do with anything than something actually being good. That's what I'm saying. That's my point.
Yeah.
So when I was shitting on grunge earlier in the other one, in part one, that's really what I was saying. Like it was new, it was exciting, it was not hair metal, which was a big plus. But it got boring. It got so boring. For me anyway.
Well, it grew and mutated and evolved.
Sure. But the thing is,
it evolved into alternative.
There are a lot of bands that came out in the 90s that I can go back and listen to their albums to this day and like really enjoy them. There's not a single Nirvana album that I can do that with because and it's not because I just listened to it too much back then. That can't be it because there's a lot of other bands that I've over listened to and I still really enjoy them. Nirvana just wasn't one of them.
You are Stan Marsh watching movie previews where everything is just crap and every character in the previews are just spewing crap out of their mouths. That's how you're looking back on grunge and 90s music.
No, there's plenty of that now too. I think the trick is to develop a refined, cultured palate to be able to recognize shit for shit. And not just be like drawn in because you were imprinted as a kid or
but shit that is objectively shit like Friends, not like Seinfeld, which is apparently objectively not shit.
Yes, objective. I mean, just look at the sales numbers between the two. I mean, isn't that an objective metric?
Let's look at the sales numbers. Do you really think Seinfeld has blown away Friends with their success?
I think so. All right, we'll look that up. We'll look that up after the podcast.
We'll put a pin in that and come back to it.
Yeah, make a note of that. We'll come back to that.
All
and in the next episode, if I'm wrong about that, I will read an apology that you write from. You can say whatever you want. It's got to be under a minute or something like that.
Sure.
But I'll read it, and it can be whatever you want. I can say I will say whatever you want. If I'm wrong about that,
we have to set parameters on how big the differential in the successes have to be. We'll work all that out.
Okay.
I'll have my lawyers call your lawyers and we'll work up some papers.
That's fair. That's fine. Yeah, I have more stuff. Like I have I already kind of touched on the fact that I don't. It's not that I'm just looking back and saying everything back then was shit because it wasn't. There was a lot of cool stuff that came out, of course. It's just that like I don't need nostalgia in my life. Like I think for a lot of people it's a blanket.
Comforting.
That's all it is.
Absolutely.
And I don't need that because I'm always on the lookout for the next like cool thing, the next thing that's going to capture me. I do a game stream every Tuesday and Thursday where I'm playing old shitty games, like old games from like the 80s. The reason I'm doing that is because I know there's some like really good games in there. And I still come across some where I'm like, they'll blow me away, even though they're, 40 years old or whatever they are. And they'll grab me and I will get sucked into them and absolutely love them. So I'm not saying that everything was shit. I mean, in this example, 90% of it's shit. Okay. But yeah, so go outside was another one. You know, your parents always threw you outside. Like nowadays, nobody does that with their kids that I've ever seen.
And those were the days before global warming. We should have been getting in that outside time.
We were in global warming and acid rain and all kinds of like horrendous shit is going on with
Come
the
to
weather.
think of it, we don't hear about acid rain nearly as often as people yammered on about it in the 90s. Like by a lot.
So the thing is, everybody likes to like I've seen people nostalgize or whatever about back in our day we went outside and we built bicycle ramps and blah blah blah
And we drank from the hose.
and we did all of that. It's true, but so what? Most of the time that we spent outside was in boredom trying to figure out what the hell we were going to do, because they literally just kicked us out of the house. That's it. And then we were on our own. And so we would bike around town and we'd cause trouble and maybe get into some fights with the neighbor kids. And we didn't do anything wholesome. I mean, we went to the library every
It had to
once
have been
in
a
a while.
lot of you duping your younger siblings into doing dumb things.
Oh, I didn't hang out with my siblings. Are you kidding?
I mean,
screw those people.
Well, I mean, when
They're on their own. We're all outside. I'm not hanging out with them. I'm going off with my friends.
when you were in Wapaka, but in Amherst in the middle of nowhere, what did you do?
Fought. Like literally, that's all we did. We fought. And then my mom would kick us outside because she wouldn't want blood on her carpet.
And then once you were outside in Amherst in the middle of nowhere, that's when you try to dupe your younger siblings into doing stupid shit for your amusement.
I don't know.
Telling them, do it, you won't get hurt. And in your mind, you're like, oh, God.
Yeah, but that only
hope they
works
get hurt.
until they're like 4. They're on to you by then. You've already done a lot of damage.
You're
by
not
then.
being clever enough, sir. Or you're not incentivizing them enough.
Go outside sucks. And especially when you live in the middle of nowhere, go outside sucks. You know what I used to do? I used to living out in the middle of nowhere when we had to stay with our mom, because we went back and forth to our dad and our moms. Dad lived in town, mom didn't. So I would literally steal cigarettes from my mom, go off into the woods and read the latest issue of Nintendo Power. Like that's literally going outside. I had to make it at least somewhat interesting and entertaining. And that's how I did it. Everybody who thinks that they're so much better than millennials because they went outside, you didn't do anything outside. You were bored out of your mind half the time. And then even if you weren't, you were getting in trouble or getting hurt or that's all I remember about being outside.
A lot of people will tell you that's the point. You go outside to meditate, be in nature for the sake of being in nature, and there's nothing forward moving about it. There's nothing incentivizing about it. You do it just for the sake of doing it because it'll actually shut off your thinking and allow you to reset.
The number one reason why I don't have nostalgia glasses for the 90s, the one thing that ruined everything for me as a kid.
Here we go.
School. School was such a big part of everybody's life. I mean, I'm sure it still is. But that ruined everything. That ruined my life. School ruined my life. You got to get up at the crack of dawn. Like, what's it for?
I'll give you an air high five for that one. Yeah, school is the absolute worst.
Literally the biggest waste of time ever. Like looking back on it objectively as an adult who has 20 years of adult life now behind me, post school, I can honestly say it did nothing for me. Absolutely nothing. And, people can say, well, didn't you learn to read and write and do basic math? No.
You probably would have picked it up somewhere else.
I learned all that on my own or at home or from my parents. That's where I learned that. And I read all the time when I was a kid. School did not do that for me. All it did was punish me for existing, for being a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. What can I say other than I agree?
I should have spent that time from the time I was about 14 until 18. I should have had a full-time job and saved money and bought a house. School did literally nothing. It prevented me from going out and reaching my full potential. That's what school did to me. And I think school does that to a lot of people.
After you were talking about limited access to good music, better music than what you had in the 90s, and now you're talking about this, it's just making me realize like, oh, you're coming from a pretty, and I'm not going to get political here, but I will talk about the political compass itself and say you're coming from kind of a libertarian right mindset, right? Is it safe to say that? Because libertarian right mindset is like, why would I waste my time in school when I could be making shit happen? I could be prospering. When I think libertarian right, I think don't get in my way of prospering. Don't get in my way of looking for the stuff I want to find.
It's not don't get in my way.
Accomplishing the
It's
stuff I want to accomplish.
you're literally holding onto my shirt while I'm trying to run a marathon.
Yeah.
And
it's impeding you.
That's crazy, though. It's crazy that we have a whole system set up that way, though. That is just, it's so normal in society. And everybody thinks it is absolutely necessary. Because God forbid we don't have public schools. What would our kids do? They'd get fucking jobs. That's what they would do. And they would actually learn real life skills.
And not be stressed out and pissed off about school. But
yeah, that was the other thing. That the idea that you go there for 8 hours a day, and then they send you home with more work that you have to do later on. Like that's cutting into your.
Oh, absolutely.
That's cutting into my like smoking and Nintendo Power time. That's crazy.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Homework is unforgivable. I won't say too many things in our society are truly unforgivable, because I try to come to peace about things, but it's really hard for me to come to peace about homework. Like, you make me take this home with me, so that way it's lingering there like a dark cloud terrorizing me in my own home. I have to bring peace.
And for what? How did that make you a better person in life? What did that do anything for you?
It didn't. No.
No, of course not. It's absolutely ridiculous. I have never heard a decent excuse for public education ever. Like, never. It is literally just babysitting so your parents can go to work. At least it was for me. Like I said, maybe some people really get something out of school. Maybe they do. Maybe there's like special needs classes that people take that really helps them learn actual valuable skills. But for most people, I think it's the biggest waste of time. And it is. It was a dark cloud that hung over my entire childhood.
It's babysitting while your parents are at work, and it's beating us into submission very gradually. So that way we enter the workforce as George Carlin would say, as obedient workers.
I didn't want to start off with that example because there's better reasons to not be all gung-ho about the 90s. Like access to music and media and like all that other shit. But anyway, that's what I had. That's my anti-90s rant.
When you started out that anti-90s rant, one of your first sentiments was there was nothing good in the 90s. Music was bad. TV was bad. We didn't take away anything positive or learn anything from any of it. It was all just benign crap. It's interesting that you said that, because as you're saying that, I'm like, oh boy, can't wait to bring in my second topic, because you're laying this groundwork that poisons that well, so to speak.
All right.
My second topic is about how Danny Tanner from Full House was awesome, and he taught me a lot. Yeah, watching ABC sitcoms helped me. And
you feel like he would have been more understanding about you losing your boots.
Yes. And also, yes. Yeah, because that kind of stuff was a moral compass. And it taught me that it is possible for human beings to talk things out and maybe even teach their kids, oh, I don't know, like mnemonic devices and little clever ways of remembering your boots, instead of just waiting for them to fail so you can yell at them in front of company with a bright red screaming face and a big shit-eating smile on your face because you're making fun of this little 8-year-old kid for losing his $189 boots.
Still kind of funny.
I mean, I'm just now starting to be able to laugh about it 33 years later.
You've been carrying the boots baggage for that long?
About as long as the Jose Canseco baggage.
Man.
Yeah. I guess you could say
this should be a therapy session.
I guess. Well, maybe
this podcast should just turn into a therapy session.
All right, Andy, what imprints would you like to talk about this week?
Well, talk about how you think Danny Tanner is your ideal father.
Back in the 90s, well, Full House started in the very late 80s, but it was mostly a 90s show. I think it went 8 seasons. I think like
I have no
I think
idea.
like 6, maybe even 7 of those
I
seasons were
watched
in
it
the
all the
90s.
time, but again, because it was the only thing that was on TV.
Yeah. Either that or on Channel 7, maybe like Major Dad or Designing Women might have been in the other in the same time slot. But anyways, I would watch these sitcoms in the 90s and be like, "Hmm, why isn't my family like that? How come when I socialize with people at school, it's not quite the same as when I see kids socializing in school on these shows?" And of course, I was smart enough to realize, it's probably because this stuff is scripted and written and it's idealized and it's fantasy. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but still, it seems like the people that I encounter in my real life are pretty off balance. They're pretty big jerks. They're pretty dumb. And the people on TV, I'm like, they're not necessarily idealized and ideally perfect. They're just closer to being balanced. And I mean, what is sitcom? Sitcom means situation comedy, right? You're adding a little bit of humor to the fact that you get into a situation. But what happens at the end of the episode? What happens at the end of the situation? Don't they all get wrapped up in a neat little package? Don't they all come to some sort of resolve, some sort of resolution?
Mm,
In the
do
not,
they though?
I guess it depends on who you ask, but in the 90s, at least for the first 2/3 of the 90s, most sitcoms were family based. Not
Yes.
all of them, but most of them. Then you get to like 90, probably about 97, there was a noticeable shift. It started being all about shows like The Drew Carey Show and Dharma and Greg. The
Mhm.
short-lived Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place. It started to be about buddies and relationships and less about families. But the timing was good for me because right around that time is when I turned 16, got my first job in a movie theater, and had way better stuff to do than to sit around watching family sitcoms to try to get morality from them, try to get some sort of moral compass from them. So in that sense, I would say I kind of lucked out. But again, that's I'm sure you have a counter to
Did you
that.
luck out though, or did you just have your mind filled with an idealized world that just doesn't exist anywhere but Hollywood?
A little bit from column A, a little from column B, but I would watch these shows and
We would laugh at those shows when we were kids. We would literally sit there and laugh at them. Um, and make fun of them,
of course.
especially during the scenes where because they would, you know, Full House, one of the girls would get into trouble or something like that,
And
or
say
she'd have
it's
like a
not
hard,
fair.
yeah, it have a hard time at school or something. She's getting bullied. Well, whatever the thing was. And there'd always be a moment where they sit down with dad or with Uncle Jesse or whatever, and they'd be like, you know, things like this happen to all of us
The
and blah, blah,
music
blah.
gets really somber.
What? Remember after school specials?
Of course.
And remember everybody shitting on after school specials relentlessly? What was different about Full House from an after school special? To us, it wasn't any different. It was the same dumb bullshit.
A few more laughs, but I guess it wasn't your kind of laughs.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, they were funny sometimes. Like I said, we watched them. They were entertaining,
Yeah.
but we did always laugh at the resolution scene because it was just so dumb. And that's not how shit happened in our house. If we stepped out of line, there was no mom sits down and talks with you. She gives you a backhand and yells at you, and that's it. And that was the end of it.
Did you at least like Roseanne more than most sitcoms for being a
Oh
little bit
yeah, for
more?
sure,
Yeah,
for sure.
a
Yeah,
little more realistic.
yeah, that was more realistic to us, I think. And so maybe, but the humor got edgier with Roseanne too, though.
Yeah,
So that could be
it
it.
did. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I don't know, man. I guess I was a more sensitive boy than you because when I was growing up, I'm like, dang, it would be nice if like one person in my life was nice to me ever. You know what I mean? So I would watch these shows and I would kind of escape into them, especially TGIF being Friday night. Oh baby, you spend all week looking forward to that payoff, and then the your week of kid prison is finally done. and it's the weekend and you just can't wait. You're so happy that you're free. And then TGIF comes on. It's going to be Urkel. It's going to be Cody on Step by Step. It's going to be Balky. It's all those characters you love so much, and it's going to be laughs. And chances are Bob's probably not going to be a jerk tonight because he likes Cody and Urkel too. And it was so good. And as I'm watching, I'm like kind of escaping into it and kind of learning from it and kind of being like, I feel like people in society could stand to be a little bit more like this. Uh, yeah, it's kind of a wiener thing to say, and it's kind of an idealized thing to say, but it was my experience. That was my experience, and at the time, I I took a lot from it. We're still going.
Yeah, that's good.
What am I really trying to say here? Oh! I got to get back on track and talk about Danny Tanner specifically. I feel like he was underrated. I think a lot of people would compare him to Joey and Uncle Jesse. By the way, anytime
Wait, are you talking about the character Danny Tanner?
Yeah, I'm talking about the characters. I'm not talking about Bob Saget right now. By the way, I was going to make a little footnote. Anytime somebody says Uncle Joey, that's incorrect. He was not an uncle. He was just a friend who lived with them.
Yes.
So a lot of people say Uncle Jesse and Uncle Joey as quick reference. No, on the show, they would always say Uncle Jesse and Joey. They would always say it that way. So it was almost like they were tricking you. No, don't forget, Joey's not an uncle. But anyways, I think a lot of people would look at the three of them and be like, okay, which one do you think is cooler? Which one do you identify with more? Which one would you want to be if you were on the show? Oh, I always wanted to be a comedian. I always want people to laugh at my jokes, so I would want to be Joey. I think he's more fun loving. Oh no, I'd want to be Jesse because he's a rocker, and he gets all the chicks and stuff. No one ever said they'd want to be Danny. Why would anybody want to be Danny Tanner?
Yeah, why would you?
Tall, goofy looking, a dweeb. Remind you of anybody?
A single dad stuck with 3 kids? Yeah, that sucks.
And he was always very organized. He was always the rock. He always kept things going. He was the compass. He was the captain, the ringleader of everything. I don't think I even gave him like any credit at the time. I wanted to be like Uncle. I wanted to no, actually I wanted to be like Joey for the most part. Only because I probably thought I couldn't pull off being Uncle Jesse. I'm like, somebody else cooler than me can be the Uncle Jesse. I'll be Joey. In hindsight now, I think I would want to be Danny Tanner because I don't think that guy cared what anybody thought of him. And you want to know what else? He was funny. He was probably as funny, if not funnier, than Joey. He just did dad jokes all the time and then giggled at his own dad jokes because that's all he needed. He was happy being amused by himself. He didn't give a crap if you didn't like it. And he played a mean guitar. There were a few episodes where we saw him play guitar. He could probably play just as good as Jesse. He's just like, I don't really need to. I don't need to be this.
I could be a rock star, but
I don't need to be this pretentious rocker, this angsty, overly passionate guy like Uncle Jesse. I can just be me. You know what I mean? And at the same time, keeping everything in order. You know he was good with money. You know he was good at everything he tried to be good at. What a hand he got in life. The great magnet. Do you know how his wife died?
no.
The character
Was it cancer?
hit by a drunk driver.
Oh, that's right.
They only mentioned
It was always drunk drivers back then.
It was just died in a car accident for the first like 6 or 7 seasons, and then it came out later that it was a drunk driver.
Of course.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
That's more after school special propaganda being
Agenda,
shoved down your throat.
for sure. I think I've touched on pretty much all the points I wanted to say about
Danny Tanner.
Tanner.
I can honestly say I have never given a second thought to Danny Tanner, like ever.
Yeah, he thanks, Great Magnet. You always seem to have a way of doing that. That was where I ended my list of talking points for Danny Tanner. That's it. I think he was pretty cool.
Who is your favorite TV dad in the
Oh,
chat?
yeah.
Or leave a comment and let us know who your favorite TV dad is.
Or just or just from any 90s sitcom, who was your favorite like adult role? Who did you consider your mentor or your hero?
I've never even thought of that.
Yeah.
You just broadened everything, and I still can't think of one person that I would say I looked up to and admired this person.
Kramer?
No, nobody from TV, because I always just thought they were fictional characters.
Yeah.
To me, it was like reading a book. Like none of it meant anything to me.
I don't know, there was something enchanting about
The Ultimate Warrior, maybe.
there was something enchanting about like a warm, cozy, happy Friday night watching TGIF, knowing that stuff wasn't going to suck for a while. I got pulled into a different reality where I didn't just look at them as fictional characters. I looked at them as a a mirror reflecting what could be if we would just get our shit together and be as straight laced and good at life as Danny Tanner was.
All right. I mean, I'll give that one to you because I never, like I said, it never even crossed my mind ever to.
What you need to do to help drive this point home, you need to find yourself a YouTube montage of him making fun of Kimmy Gibbler, and you'll be like, "Oh wow, he actually
Oh
was pretty
no,
funny."
yeah, for sure. Yeah, he did that all the time. He
And
was relentless.
yeah, perfect delivery. Just
Yeah,
yeah.
but how is that different than like Bob mocking you for losing your boots? Like just because he was more clever about it, or what?
uh,
Or like Kimmy didn't even really know that she was being made fun of half the time, or
when Bob did it, it wasn't funny.
but that's just because it was you. Like
Yeah, I knew you were
would
gonna freaking say
would
that.
would Kimmy think it was funny if she knew her best friend's dad had such little respect for her that he was just making jokes that half the time went over her head? What would Kimmy say?
She could have avoided Danny when she came over to hang out with DJ, but she didn't. She saw him and smiled and called him Mr. T.
Yeah, but she was like that with everybody. She was just that outgoing.
So Bob being a
I
dick.
always thought Kimmy was hot, by the way, for the record. For everybody who ever dumped on Kimmy Gibbler, hey, I'd hook up with her.
Yeah. So Bob being a dick to me was my fault because I wasn't more of a Kimmy Gibbler about it. This was another life lesson. I'm going to write this down and I'm going to try to look back on the past a little bit more realistically now.
Well, Bob was definitely less funny about it.
Definitely
Like
less funny.
even at the time, like even if you're the butt of the joke, he was still less funny. I guarantee. He was not that clever about it.
That guy sucked. Anyways, that was my second topic. Danny Tanner was
Was your TV dad?
Danny Tanner was my TV dad, and he deserves a little more credit. Also, rest in peace, Bob Saget. Dang.
See, I only know of Bob Saget, really. Like, obviously, I watched Full House, but I never gave any thought to, well, any of the characters, really, but Danny Tanner especially. But I did watch Bob Saget stand-up specials and stuff on Netflix
Where
when
he was like
doing that.
raunchy and trying to
Yeah,
distance himself from the Danny Tanner
yeah.
image. Now, I saw this one YouTube clip where he was like outdoors in a setting where he was like signing autographs for people, and somebody in the distance in the crowd yelled, "I want to fuck the Olsen twins." And he turned his head without missing a beat, turned his head and said, "Yeah, me and you both, buddy."
Ooh. I hope he waited till they were legal age
I
before
mean,
he...
it was, yeah, that's definitely not an issue.
I always thought they were pretty gross.
So,
You know who got hot? Well, both DJ and who was the middle one? Stephanie. Like Stephanie got pretty hot.
I would
Just
say
throwing
so.
that out there.
Yeah.
Um,
Speaking of hot chicks, so
okay.
in the failed first half, the mysterious will we be able to find it first half of this evening's podcast, Corey talked a little bit about the band L7, and I'm like, L7. I wonder if they've ever toured with, because that would have been a perfect tour.
With Lords of Acid.
Yeah,
Oh, who knows? But
that would be dope.
so what got me thinking about this was, do you remember, I think it was 2 years ago, maybe? You remember the song Wet Ass Pussy, right? By Cardi B. You remember how
I've been drinking heavily to forget. Thanks for reminding me.
well, but it was a funny song though.
Yeah.
The song itself was funny.
Yeah.
Uh, she's talking about like swiping dudes' noses like a credit card, and she's got her bucket and mop.
Yeah, you'll need a
and-
mop to clean it up.
Yeah. And she had like a lot of funny Punani Dasani. Like that was great. And to me, like I just thought it was hilarious, and it was poetry, definitely on par with Maya Angelou, as far as the beauty of how it was all structured and how it all came together. And it was just all about her wet ass pussy. And but people lost their minds about that song. As you know, I'm a Twitter boy. I'm not on Facebook. Right-wing moral Twitter lost their fucking minds over wet ass pussy. And it was just nonstop. Oh, this is not empowering to women. This is degrading and blah, blah, blah. Ben Shapiro famously talked about,
Infamously.
he had a lot to say about how wet ass pussy was not empowering at all. And in fact,
I had a lot to say about how it's not possible at all.
How in fact his wife doesn't even get wet because she has a medical condition. He went on this whole big thing like talking about his wife's dry ass pussy. What the hell? Like what? How do you throw your wife under the bus like that? Here's what happened. Ben Shapiro heard the song Wet Ass Pussy, and he's like, no, logically that cannot be possible. Wet ass pussies just don't exist. Ask my wife. And so she had to come up with an excuse like, oh, it was like a medical condition. That's what it is, Ben. Really? Really? And then, of course, and he's tweeting about it. Anyway, that's kind of a sidebar. Is there anything about Ben Shapiro that would even get you wet as a woman?
Oh, good Lord.
What is it?
Chime in the chat. Let us know.
Is it owning stupid college kids with there's only 2 genders? I mean, does that really get you going as a woman? Anyway, the point was, before wet ass pussy blew everybody's minds and completely outraged, moralizing right-wing Twitter, there was another band that nobody ever talked about who was even worse, who was much, much worse. That band, of course, is Lords of Acid. I even got myself a Lords of Acid shirt. So look at this sexy devil lady.
I remember her from the MTV Return to the Rock CD covers and Rob Zombie type of stuff.
This is really funny to me.
But that came first.
Because I liked Lords of Acid back in the 90s. They're a good band even today. It's very heavy industrial techno dance, whatever you want to call it. It's that type of music. So while all of these crazy people are freaking out about bands like Marilyn Manson, nobody ever said a word about this fucking band, Lords of Acid, who famously had album art that had to get censored after a while because it was a little too risque. Here, So the first image that we saw, that was the censored version of this album. Right. Like I said, this is the first Lords of Acid album I ever heard, the first one I ever bought. This is what the album used to look like right here.
Right.
For the purposes of showing this on YouTube, I put pants and bras on these lovely ladies here. Imagine being a teenage boy and having this in your collection.
Ooh, baby.
It was, it's pretty hot.
Back in the 90s? Yeah.
Naked devil chicks lesing out in hell. And people thought Marilyn fucking Manson was a problem. people flipped their shit about Marilyn Manson. And wet ass pussy. She sings about wet ass pussy. You go through and you look at like their lyrics, and it's all lyrics about fucking. At least the first album that they put out, oh shit, what was it called? I can't remember what the name of the first album was, but the entire album is that style of music, and it's all what's that?
Was it just
Lust. That's it. It's got the chick on the cover where she's doing like some sexy pose. It's all lyrics about fucking, basically. And not just that, but they have songs on there about you know, how they're thinking about love and their wedding day, and this is all being sung by a girl, of course, and candlelight dinners, and then it cuts into like, I'm thinking about rough sex and dirty sex, and like that was their whole MO. And did I even put any lyrics? I wrote some of these. They had a song called Spacey Bitch. That one was on Lust. That wasn't on this one. But the lyrics are like, down on the floor, you bitch, you spacey slut. And then she says, I want your body, Earth Man. And it's just crazy shit like that.
Why did they not get the third degree from Tipper Gore?
Nobody knew these people even existed. That's the wild thing.
Manson and Two Live Crew just got the worst of it.
Gangster rap. Like... Cypress Hill took more shit than Lords of Acid from the Moralists back in the 90s.
For singing,
whatever.
For singing about bongs?
Yeah, for singing about bongs. And it's all these guys sang about was fucking. Now, in fairness, Voodoo U was a little different. So Lust was all about fucking. This graduated, and they didn't just talk about fucking, they talked about drugs and sadomasochism and stuff like that. So lyrically, they evolved a little bit. It wasn't just about sex anymore. It was about all this other stuff.
They really expanded their horizons
of
their art.
And then after this, there was an album called Our Little Secret.
Ooh, I remember that album cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, that chick's hot, right?
I would say.
Yeah, for sure. And then the funny thing is when you fold it out, dong. You thought this person was hot. Let's not forget that.
Okay.
And yeah, she's got a big old donger right there.
It's yeah.
See, the thing is,
about the size of mine.
Given their MO for doing all this music about, and having all this like absolutely X-rated imagery. When I first saw this, my initial response was, oh yeah, you buy it and you fold it out and she's going to be like butt ass naked, or she's going to have somebody like licking her cooch or something. Like it's going to be something like that, because that is on par with Lords of Acid. Yeah, absolutely. And instead it's just, nope, you just get an eye full of dong. Thanks for buying the album. Enjoy this dong. And then you got to go back to looking at the other one. The other thing that Voodoo U, I said they graduated lyrically. They had a song, and I had forgotten about this until I was listening to the album again. And there's a song on there called The Crab Louse, obviously talking about crabs. Yeah. And I was just like laughing my ass off while I was listening to it. And the lyrics are, and again, let's compare this to Wet Ass Pussy or anything Marilyn Manson ever wrote. Here's a message for the girls about vaginas and their consequences of fiddling with a partner. Mind your labia. They're never out of danger. If you're going to go to bed with a stranger, creatures might be hidden in his pubic area. It's the crab louse that's out to get you. It's going to grab you by the pubic hair, shake your pussy when the bastard's there. That should have been in sex ed class.
I was literally about to say that helped more people than any after-school special did.
I guarantee it. Yep. The advice about shaking your pussy when the bastards like I don't think that works. I don't think you can just get up and shake off crabs. Maybe you can. What do I know about pussies? Not a lot.
Unless there's something artistic about that statement we're not getting. We'll have to come back to that.
And I've never had crabs either, so I mean there's that too. But yeah, I wanted to bring in Lords of Acid after shitting on the 90s. I want to make it clear. I think there was a lot of good shit that came out of the 90s. We saw great evolution in music, especially with that genre of music. Like, I love that music. Lords of Acid was like heavy as fuck too.
Yeah.
So Lust was very techno dance, like more towards that end. Voodoo U got pretty heavy and industrial by comparison. So yeah, I wanted to bring them in. One of my favorite bands from the 90s, Lords of Acid. I love them. The lyrics are hilarious half the time. The artwork is absolutely stunning and amazing. Sometimes surprising, like it was with the Dong.
Yeah.
There's nothing to not love about this band.
That Dong thing, it reminds me of that meme that says, when I used to look at the Poison album cover of Look Who the Cat Dragged In, I used to jerk off to it thinking that it was chicks. And then after I found out they were dudes, I jerked off to it for another month.
I've never made that mistake while jerking off ever in my entire life. And I'm proud to say that.
It's a surprise. It's a bait and switch, if that's the right term. Just like the Dong thing is.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a good looking trans woman there, though. I mean, she's obviously airbrushed a little bit, but I mean, she's got it where it counts. She's really got it where it counts down here. I mean, she's giving Ron Jeremy a run for his money. That's wild. So, anyway, that was my topic. I kind of sped through that one just because I didn't want to be here all night. Because this one's running kind of long too.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, a little bit longer than the one we did 2 weeks ago. But hey,
any parting thoughts?
How much do boots cost these days, anyways? I haven't bought winter boots.
Well, what kind were they? Were they like the rubber ones, or were they moon boots?
Oh, they were whatever the cheapest ones Fleet Farm had. I guarantee.
He didn't pay $80 for them then.
No.
In the 90s?
He paid $35 for them. He paid $35 for the $40, $50, $60, $70, $80 boots. That's what I'm saying. Yep.
What an asshole.
I hope somebody who heard him telling that story thought about that. They're like, 80, I don't even know where you would buy $80 boots. This is the 90s.
Mm-hmm. Money still had some value back then.
And so did music, but you just won't see that.
I just did music. I just did awesome...
I mean, I still disagree with you about because I look back on the 90s and I'm like, literally in my mind, every year was a new musical revolution.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I like about the 90s. But I'm saying like certain bands just didn't have that. They had no sustaining factor. They can't.
Well, if you're going to say that the big four grunge bands all suck, you should tell me a grunge band that you thought didn't suck.
No, I loved all of them at the time. What I'm saying is that they suck now. So when I look back on them, I can't listen to them anymore.
So I'm asking, can you tell me a grunge band that has held up? Or are you saying that
I would put Bad Religion above all those bands?
Okay, kind of, yeah, punk band, old school punk band.
I wouldn't listen to it, but I never.
So you're kind of saying that when music revolutions happened in the 90s, they were valid at the time, but they just don't mean anything now.
Absolutely. Yes. Whereas with the newer generations, like my kid, he loves those bands.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, all right,
good.
They're not that great. And plus I'm looking at it from the perspective of existing at a time where you're open to all the music. You're not just stuck with this. And I'm thinking back then, my taste in music probably would have been a lot different if that's not what I had.
I wonder how much differently I would speak about the validity and the revolutionary factor of music back then if I didn't find it so comforting to go back and listen to the music that I grew up on.
And see, I don't have that comfort with any of the music that I grew up on. I just don't. I'm so bored of all of it. And like I said, there's bands that I will go back and listen. There's albums that I'll like Iron Maiden, Fear of the Dark. I love that album. I loved it when I was a kid. I love it now. But like Injustice for All, that's another one that I like. There's a lot of albums that I can pick out piecemeal and just say, yeah, this was all right, and I can still listen to it today. But for the most part, I just can't stomach any of it anymore. Not now. Not when I know what is possible with music.
I still think you're not in touch with your feelings.
Ah.
I think maybe like current day, you just don't have enough of a range of moods. Because I think if you did, you would find yourself sometimes where you're just like, I'm just in the mood that I want to listen to some Nirvana. It's I
Well,
think
what about
I
Bad
think-
Religion?
I don't
It's the same thing.
Glitch in the Matrix? I don't know. You're a weird guy. It's hard to figure you out.
Like why does it have to be Nirvana and not Bad Religion? That's what I'm saying. Like, why can't I think Nirvana sucks? Or like I said, they didn't suck in the sense of they were great back then.
Maybe it's not just this band versus that band, but it's just like the volume, the percentage of music that you will say has not stood the test of time.
Yeah.
90s music that hasn't stood the test of time.
Yeah, that's a very low bar, but that's a low bar in every generation. I think you just think it stands the test of time because you were at that time. That's my real argument here.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
Let us know in the comments how right I am and how wrong Andy is.
How emotionally stunted Corey is and how much I'm trying to get in touch with my feelings to live a greater human experience.
You need to listen to some more Lords of Acid. That's it.
You're not wrong.
Lords of Acid. I was listening. By the middle of the 90s, I was listening to them more than I was listening to anything by Nirvana. I mean,
but not more than you listen to Tool. But I'm sure you'll be bringing that in sometime as a topic, so I won't step on that right now.
Oh, that was later. That Tool was much later than that, than Nirvana or Lords of Acid. The Enema album was anyway.
Starting to get MTV play, maybe, but I mean, their first EP came out in like '92, right?
Yeah.
Which means, I mean, yeah, Nirvana was already a thing by then.
Yeah, but I'm saying that like the Enema album didn't come out until like 96 or 97. 96, I think. So that would have been
I would have thought like 94, but
no.
I must be a little off.
No. Kurt Cobain died in 94.
Right.
Yeah. No, that Tool album was way after that.
Okay.
But anyway, neither here nor there. Again, let us know in the comments
about how right I am.
How much better my topics are. Let's just go for the nuclear option.
Every single one of you did not appreciate Danny Tanner. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I guarantee you're the only one that ever gave that much thought to Danny Tanner. I gotta say, it's intriguing. I couldn't even chime in because I'm like, really? Danny Tanner? But everything you were saying was right, though. Everything you were saying was spot on. I had just never thought of it.
He had his shit together. And how many adults these days do you know who have their shit together like he did? Like nobody.
I don't know that I want a lot of people having their shit together like Danny Tanner. Okay.
Because he's not the kind of guy who would listen to Lords of Acid. I get you.
Did I play the music on the Take Us Out?
Yeah, since anybody who's been watching this stream didn't hear it the first time.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I didn't even think of that. All right. Well, I'm going to shut this thing down. Oh shit. Let's look at these quick before I do this.
Hold on. Again, we will, for all of you watching and listening, we will splice the two halves of the episodes together. Keep your eyes peeled to our YouTube channel. We'll also post about it on social media and give you a link to what will be one big video of the part you didn't see and this second half that you did see.
And if you tune in next week at 7:00, it's going to be right.
third time's the charm. That's what they always say.
No, this was the charm. We did like, it was fine. We didn't have any like tech issues or anything this time. We weren't an hour late.
The tech
But
issue
we were still an hour late. That's what drives me crazy.
the great magnet was the tech issue this time.
Yeah, that's all right. Next time will be better. Anyway, comments. Bridger Smith says, I was wondering, he was wondering when the stream was going to start.
Mhm.
Okay. Pat says, Friends was super normie compared to Seinfeld. Yeah, it was. I'd bet Friends was way more popular. Ooh. So he's contradicting me. He's saying he thinks that it's probably got more money behind it.
I kind of feel like they were neck and neck, but again, we have to look this up.
Yeah. You go outside to discover yourself rather than have media tell you who you should be.
I do not disagree with that.
Maybe, but I don't.
Because outside is where the noise shuts off and you can actually think in a different way that isn't full of noise.
In Wapaka? No. You
Yeah,
just went outside and you didn't have media telling you who you had to be. You had like the neighborhood to tell you who you needed to be.
You're mostly thinking about going outside in Wapaka. I'm mostly thinking about going outside in nature. And Amherst very much was nature for most kids.
Okay.
Anyways.
Oh, well, yeah, and I did both. But look, if you're going to be forced to go outside, well, doing it in town, in a city, is better than doing it out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, because you might actually talk to somebody new.
And Pat says the Melvins. Yes, the Melvins. The Melvins is absolutely another one that I can still go back and listen to their albums every once in a while. I listened to a Chili Peppers album not too long ago too, and I was like, oh yeah, this is better. This is good too. Blood Sugar Sex Magic, that album.
Yeah.
That was a great album.
Very long album too. When people talk about the loudest concerts they've ever been to, Melvins is absolutely one of the most frequent ones I hear.
Oh yeah.
In addition to Motorhead. A lot of people will say Motorhead's the loudest show they've ever seen. But no, I hear Melvins all the time. Yep.
All right.
Never seen them. I saw Motorhead, but not Melvins.
I never saw the Melvins live. I saw Motorhead live, but
Melvins still tours pretty regularly.
Motorhead doesn't anymore.
For the sake of researching this podcast, me and you might have to go to a Melvins show. Yeah, Motorhead, we're probably not going to catch them live anytime soon. But
okay.
Rest in peace, Lemmy.
I'm gonna take us out with the theme music and end the stream. See y'all next week.
Thanks so much for watching.
We'll fix this shit.
It's already been fixed.
I'll fix my shit.
It's already been fixed.
All right. Good night, everybody.
We'll see you next week. Stay warm.
We got to get your mom in here to shake her big booty. I'm not going to rest until that happens.